This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. All right, so we just got the official word out of Browns practice. DTR has been ruled out for the Rams with his concussion, so he did not clear protocol this week. And the thing to also think about is next week with DTR, because if he doesn't immediately clear protocol next week, you're kind of in the same situation, and concussions can easily linger for multiple days. Oh, not multiple days. Obviously, they can linger for multiple days, multiple weeks, as we've seen with Marquise Goodwin, where he's been out with a concussion since the Arizona game. So don't want to understate the impact of a concussion. I think we all look at it as a 1 week thing if you're being safe, but this could be more than a 1 week thing because again, Marquise Goodwin, he ain't even back this week, right? He out this week again. So he's been out like a month on that concussion, and maybe that's just due with some other issues he had going on, but he's been out for a while. So it's something to keep in mind. Just don't assume that it's going to be a 1 week thing with DTR. I hope it is. I don't think it's going to be much longer than that, but you have to go into that and then go into some discussions we'll have after I get through the injury report thing too. Denzel Ward has been ruled out for this game with his shoulder. That's disappointing. I felt like they were close to having him back in Denver. He didn't go. He traveled with the team though, and then he's out again this week. I thought him coming on that West Coast trip definitely meant that he would be back within this week. So that's kind of disappointing to hear that he's going to be back here. Well, not back yet. And then Marquise Goodwin is out. Nick Harris is questionable, but likely going to play. And then Myles Garrett is playing the game with no game status designation. That's incredible. That's incredible. They don't even think that shoulder hurt no more. Hey, man. Hey man, like hopefully this doesn't turn into a thing where he underestimated and becomes a bigger problem. But yeah, Myles Garrett, superhuman yet again. And it's crazy where we went from this, because people legitimately thought Myles Garrett was out for the season. Like they saw him in that sling. They had flashbacks to Deshaun Watson, and they were like, he's out for the rest of the season. He's not going to miss a game. Incredible. So that's the most important thing, is that Myles is going to play in this game. I didn't even hear of an injury designation for Amari Cooper. So he's clearly going to play in this game. So the two guys that you were worried about missing a game potentially, they're not going to miss the game when it comes to the support around the quarterback. And then DTR, who we kind of expected to be out, maybe if you can get lucky on like a Brock Purdy, Kenny Pickett situation, he can clear the protocol real quick, but he can't. Joe FLACCO is going to be out there and start at quarterback. And that brings me to a larger conversation I want to have about Joe FLACCO and why I think it's important to set reasonable expectations for Joe FLACCO. Like, I don't want us to get carried away as fans because this happens a lot with Browns fans, where a player comes in, plays good at the quarterback position, and then we want that guy to be the full-term starter. Here's where we should be at with Joe FLACCO. I think what is fair to expect out of Joe FLACCO is he can give you 2 back-to-back games. Like if he has to play in 2 back-to-back games, you're fine with that. Where you don't want to be with Joe FLACCO, regardless of how he plays in those 2 back-to-back games, is in a situation where you have to start him a 3rd game back-to-back, a 4th game back-to-back, a 5th game back-to-back, and a 6th game back-to-back. Why do I think this? Well, I think it's all about his age. Now, I do think when we talk about age in sports in general, we miss some very important parts. Like, we think age just automatically like turns down all the attributes on your stats. Like, it's Madden, right? You get 39, you turn into a 60 overall. And I don't think that's necessarily how it works. Just as somebody who is experiencing aging himself, not as much aging as Joe FLACCO has had. I'm a little bit younger than him, about 10 years. But, I've experienced enough aging to know just because he's older doesn't mean he can't play a game. But because he's older, I don't know how well his body's going to hold up if he plays a season. Right? And I think that's the bigger concern. Regardless of what you think about DTR, it's important that we look at Joe FLACCO for this season as a very temporary solution. You want to put him in for a game or two, but you don't want to start him 5 games. If you look at what he did last year in New York, first game was a banger. Second game was a banger. I think he threw like 90 pass attempts in those 2 games. Third game, he was completely butt. I think right now with Joe FLACCO, you get about 85 dropbacks, 80 pass attempts before him being 38 starts to matter. We saw this with Phillip Rivers in 2020. Really good the first couple weeks. Fell off a cliff after like week 5. Age is undefeated. Age does not lose. Age beat Tom Brady. Age beat Drew Brees. Age made Peyton Manning so bad that we was comparing PJ Walker to him in 2015. Well, not in 2015, but we was comparing what the Browns could do with PJ Walker versus what you could do with a hurt Peyton Manning. That's what age does to you. And in the NFL, the effect that age has, especially on the quarterback position, is your ability to play week to week. And we can use even Tom as an example. Now, he made it to like 44 or something crazy like that. But look at some of the quarterbacks he got outplayed by at age 44 during the regular season. He got outplayed by Jacoby Brissett and PJ Walker. Go look at those stat lines. Both of those dudes completely outplayed Tom. Because Tom was 44. And he wasn't bad. He didn't forget how to play quarterback because he's 44. His body just can't do that shit every week when you 44, right? But for Joe FLACCO at 38, I think he could do it for 2 weeks in a row. If you ask Joe FLACCO to do it more than 2 weeks in a row, you're going to get a bad result. And I think the benefit of having a Joe FLACCO in there is that that's a guy who you could put in when he needs to be put in and take out when he needs to be taken out and then put him back in if he needs to be put back in again. He's a veteran quarterback. He's been in this situation before. It's not going to affect his confidence. So I do think Joe FLACCO is going to play well this week. And if he's asked to play against Jacksonville, I think he'll play well enough. But I still don't think that means you go off of DTR. I think DTR is your starter for the rest of the season, no matter what. Because the issue with Joe FLACCO isn't that I don't think he can play well in his offense. He'll be supported enough. Kevin does a great job of that. He'll put him in that Jacoby Brissett role, and he'll be able to execute the Jacoby Brissett role for a couple of weeks. The issue isn't that he can do it for a game or two. The issue to me is that at 38, He's not going to be able to withstand the hits and the grind. And just, even if he doesn't get hit, the amount of throwing the football he would have to do, like throwing the ball 35 times at full strength. You go try to do that in your backyard right now. See how much your arm burning after that. If you 35 or older, it ain't something everybody can do every day. Let alone with the adrenaline of the game and then whatever hits you're going to take because you're in the pocket, around the pocket. Your body's just not going to hold up that much. And even Tom Brady, who was out here drinking lemon pepper sweat or whatever it was that he was drinking to maintain his body, it came back on him too. Right? And nobody thinks that Joe FLACCO is Tom Brady. Nobody has ever thought that. But that is my concern with some of the fan expectations for Joe FLACCO. I think he will play well for a week. And if he's asked to play well a week after that, I think he'll play well enough. I don't want people to get carried away and think he should start for the rest of the year because I think he's a temporary solution, right? He is somebody you could plug in for a couple weeks and then get back to your main thing. I think you still need DTR to get healthy. You still need him to get back on track. And if you have any chance of reaching any kind of potential outside of maybe a wild card loss, I think it's in the hands of DTR. So that's where I'm at with it. I really just don't want this to turn into a Joe Flacco bros versus DTR bros thing. Like, can we just not do this? Like, can we all have the collective understanding that Joe Flacco is in here because he's 38, he's a veteran quarterback, and you can plug him in for a game or two if you need to, but he shouldn't be your starter? Can we just have that understanding? Because if we do, I think we'll be fine. I really do. But that's the situation. DTR is going to be out probably this week. We'll see what happens next week. And I think in that scenario, you're fine. I just don't want to start Joe Flacco 3-4 weeks in a row, right? I think that eventually him being 38 is going to start to matter once you get into that part of it. But right now, I don't think it's going to matter as much as people would anticipate it mattering in the first 2 games. He's going to have fresh legs. He ain't even been in the camp all year. He's going to be fine with his body and everything else like that. But it's more or less once you get to like the 3rd or 4th start where I'm worried about that falling off a cliff and him having like truly awful games. And then if you don't put DTR back in, then you really can't go back to him. And then you're kind of stuck with the Joe Flacco who's old and hurt. And then you put DTR back in, but his confidence isn't up because you just benched him. Like, I think the best case scenario is that you just roll with DTR as a starter no matter what, because you know you can always go to Joe Flacco in case of an emergency. But he's a break glass in case of an emergency guy. I don't think you want to rush him out there. But that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.